Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Lizzie. Welcome to my channel. I'm going to tell a story to you using tarot cards. I am warming up for spooktacular scary stories, which I do all through the month of October. I'm not really sure if I'm going to do it in podcast where you're just listening to it, or if I'm going to do it in video form. I did a semi-scary story last night. It's in the community post. I put the link in so you could listen. It's just my voice. I told a short story from the top of my head. I just sat here with my computer and talked to it like I'm talking to you now, just without my face on it, because it was way early in the morning. I looked like poop. But I just made it up off the top of my head without any cards. This is how I hone and tune my storytelling gifts for being a writer, for creating stuff. This is my gift. This is my talent, and this is how I practice. And going along with the spooktacular scary I have a stutter today. Scary stories. This is what I do for them usually. So I pulled a couple decks. I have these cards we're using. I forget what the deck is. It's going to tell, I'm going to use the picture and the energy to get characters. Then I have my superhero decks to get more characters. And then I have my queen deck for personalities and traits to help me figure out. I took a couple index cards and I ripped them up into squares so that I could put them like this on each card with their details. So as I'm saying the story, if I forget a character's name or if I forget where they're from, I can just peek down and go about my story. I also have a piece of paper and a pen. I don't normally read this when I retell the story, but writing stuff helps me get ideas. Most of the time, whatever I write, I don't even use. I use it for other projects. So it's like a waste not, want not type of thing. Anyway, do it at your own pace, at your own will, and however way is inspired by you, but this is how I do it. If you are a tarot reader out there, this is how you could help be a little creative with it. Give this a shuffle. Let's get some characters on the table. I'm collaborating with spirits to tell you a story. I will link in the description box below. If you want to go now and just listen to the story, I'll timestamp so you can skip the setup if you wish. If you don't want to know how I do it and you just want to hear the story, go find the link. But this is for my writers and my creatives. So I have Regina, Antronete, we're changing names, and Savage. Okay, so Regina, leadership, power. So we got a powerhouse female character. Then we have Astronautte, self-care, embrace. To me, this is like a temptress, like mermaid vibes. And then Savage, untamed, wild, like Maleficent, dark witch. So we have a powerhouse. Let's make this person a politician. So female. Sorry, my eyeball itches. I got new eyeliner. I don't know if I'm allergic to it, but when I first put it on, my eye itches. I don't know if that's a good thing. We'll see. What form of government? She who instigates. So she's going to be a dirty politician. Let's make her like mayor of New York City. A little bit of power, but not like the president, you know what I mean? So I kind of like the name Regina. I think I've used that before. She's gotta have like a bitch name. Karen. Karen Cates. Just sounds like a bitch. No offense to all the Karens out there, but you know the running joke, like, okay, Karen. I feel like she's gonna be a Karen. Annoying, abuse of power, nobody likes her kind of thing. So let's talk about Astronante. Definitely changing her freaking name. This is the Mermaid Temptress. What is she gonna be? She's gonna be the mistress of Karen Cates' husband. Kevin Cates. What's her job gonna be? Looking at the picture, just trying to get inspired. Let's have her be a model. Young, early 20s. Which would only piss off Karen even more. So we have Sauvage, the untamed, wild, mysterious woman. She's gonna be the voodoo witch who Karen Cates hires to take out her husband and mistress and all enemies. Spiritual hitman. So she's been with Karen Cates for a while, so we have to name these two. So the young model, let's name her something like strippery. Candy. Candy corn. Candy corn Cooper. She's definitely... No. That does fall, though. Candy Cooper. And then the voodoo witch. I want her to be from, like, the Caribbean. Rihanna. In honor of Rihanna. Rihanna. The singer. No, she's not a voodoo witch, but, you know. She's an island girl, so. Brianna Rhodes. She's gonna have a little spiritual shop in the city. Alright. So we're done with that deck. Let's see. We're using our Marvel deck. And the plot thickens, people. Misty Knight and Nick Fury. Misty Knight is a PI. Hired by Karen Cates' husband, Kevin Cates, to dig up dirt on Karen. He wants a divorce. He's got to put his cards right. Karen Cates is the mayor of the New York City, you know, and not a good one, like corrupt. She would do some evil shit. So I think that I'm gonna make, not only does he want a divorce, but he wants to crumble her, destroy her. This is about revenge. I think he cares about Candy, but really doesn't give a shit. It's more just to piss off Karen. because Nick Fury, this is going to be my Kevin Cates. Master manipulator. If Karen Cates is bad, this is the one who corrupted the angel in her to bring her to the devil, the dark side. Always orchestrating. What are we going to have him do for a job? He's got to be like, she's the political power. He's got to be like the business money power. We could have him be like the Wolf of Wall Street. Wall Street stock master. So he's just he owns an investing company. He's money, mad money, loaded, like a Scrooge. Nightcrawler. In my eyes, I am beautiful. So Nightcrawler is actually going to be in love with Candy. We're going to make Nightcrawler be a warlock. Lusting after Candy. Trying to bring down Kevin Cates and the voodoo priestess Rihanna Rhodes. What are we going to call him? Winston the Warlock. Winston Wallace. It's going to be from Scotland. I like that. Scottish accent for a warlock. She's from the islands. Candy will be from, she's Southern Belle, but also part porn star. Karen Cates, I think she's going to be born and bred in New York, a native. Why she was voted mayor. I need a name for this PI over here, and why? Because Winston's got a plot twist in this. I'm going to put Winston in the story in a very clever way. But basically, Winston is Candy's best friend, works for her, travels with her, knows all her secrets, like Karen's relationship with Rihanna Rhodes. Like, they each have their little dark masters, you know? And this is going to be Kevin Cates, because Karen Cates has Rihanna Rhodes, and Candy has Winston Wallace. So this Misty Knight, she's going to be an expert detective, hacker, known whistleblower, journalist. We still need a name for her. April, in honor of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. April Andrews. Shout out to Julie Andrews as well. So we have 3 characters with 3 minions. Karen Cates, mayor of New York City, with her voodoo witch Rihanna Rhodes from the islands. Again, works for Karen, her evil minion that knows all her secrets. Then you have her husband, Kevin Cates, who's like the Wolf of Wall Street, powerful investor, has billions of dollars. So you have political power and money power, and then the two married becomes a big power couple. So it's not like they can just divorce each other. Like they're smart. They care about one thing, and that's money, or two things: money and success. They don't have kids. They just focus on their career. It's always been a political move. I don't really feel like it was passionate, because that's why they go to war so hard, but it's been hate for each other for years. So these two are like now past, when the story kicks off, they're past the point of like going to counseling. They know like the only way out of this divorce is for one of them to be destroyed, and so the other one, everybody wouldn't blame them from parting or if they died. So there's a war between the spouses is what the story is about. Because Karen brings in Rihanna, who is a voodoo priestess who had a shop. I don't know how I'm going to weave it in the story that these two met, but Karen boosted her business up. She got customers, and the two of them made a lot of money together. And anything that Karen needs done magically, Rihanna does, because she feels obligated. So there's that whole puppet on a string dynamic. But her husband has that same dynamic with April Andrews, promising her, because this is a person with money, with power, with influence, promising her to like build her own website, and she doesn't have to work for anyone. She can just have her own whistleblowing newspaper and be the editor-in-chief. So he's like dangling a big carrot for her to find a way to take Karen Cates out, because although Kevin Cates is a vicious, evil man, he isn't for murder. He doesn't go that dark. He doesn't think Regina is that capable of it, or Karen is that capable of it. But that's going to be the twist of it. Karen's going straight for the jugular. She wants to kill both Kevin and the mistress Candy, just because she's insulted that he would go for the cliche younger version, So you have two of them manipulating their minions. Then you have Candy, who knows Kevin, knows that he doesn't love her. He doesn't, really give a shit about her at all. She's using him for her film career to get a boost up. They have an agreement. It's not a love thing, but I think he respects Candy. I think they have a lot of fun together. He's pleasantly surprised that she's not as dumb as she looks, that she's actually a model with brains. He's helping her through school, and he takes a fancy to her as in a friendship, which is why Karen gets pissed, because normally he just sleeps with him and then moves on after a couple months. But Karen's noticing that Candy's getting gifts, and she's got an apartment, and she's going to school, and like she's thinking Candy is trying to get her whacked so that she can become the second wife, basically. So in Karen's mind, I need to kill this bitch before she kills me, because Karen goes right to murder. That's where her brain goes. So she's like the actual evil one of the story. And Candy, I'm going to let you decide from what you hear if she is the grand mastermind of it all, or if she's just a lucky bitch. But let's get into Winston. So Winston, Candy needs security. She travels a lot. She's a supermodel. She also needs someone, she can't just go out and buy stuff for herself. So Winston, she meets him in a very sad way. He's a homeless guy. Talks to him, and she just for some reason took pity on him, felt a connection, rinsed him up, cleaned him up, and he's been with her ever since. Live in the same house, is like a brother to her. She doesn't have any sexual connection at all, but Winston was in love with her from the minute he saw her, and she saved him, and because she's like family, he will never cross that line. So he's secretly overly Winston is a hitman, okay? He has a little bit of a murder problem, bit more than Karen. See, anytime Winston doesn't like what somebody does to Candy, he finds a creative way to just, get rid of the problem. Doesn't do it all the time, but when big shit happens to Candy or her career, people have a way of disappearing or having an accident, whatnot. And it's all because Winston and his magic or his literal skills with guns and fighting. Like, he will die for Candy. He is very old-fashioned. He defends her honor. So I think I'm going to have Winston figure out what Kevin Cates is doing with April Andrews and how he's planning to take on Karen Cates. And I'm going to have him panic, Winston panic, like, oh, maybe Kevin is going to get rid of his wife so that he can marry Candy. And if he marries Candy, then Candy isn't going to need me anymore. So now I need to get rid of Kevin if I want to keep Candy forever in my life. So the plot thickens. I don't really think I need to pull anymore. I think I got a pretty good story plot, but I'm going to go get a drink and timestamp it for you. So what do we got for the timestamp? It'll be below. My name is April Adams, and I know it's been a long time. I wasn't sure how I was going to tell this story or if I would even tell it at all. But since the dust has settled and the court dates are done and the sentencing has been issued, I think it's time that I set the record straight on what really happened in this love triangle. But in order to do that, we need to go back to the beginning, where I first met Kevin Cates. That is, if you have been living under a rock and haven't been watching the news, the mayor of New York City, our beloved city, Karen Cates' husband, Kevin Cates, he is how I entered this story. I met Kevin much like I meet many of my other clients from other cases that I have worked on, because I am a whistleblower, as society has called me, a journalist who deals with things that people don't want getting out, but it is my due diligence as a reporter to get the truth out there to the public. And when it comes to the political arena, there is a lot of things they like to keep buried under the rug. So with people I work with, I often use fake names, meet in sketchy places, or we just go months without anybody knowing that we're having any affiliation. So meeting Kevin Cates in dive bars over several weeks wasn't odd to me. What he was asking me, I make majority of my money as private investigator, PI work, as you would call it. Reporting doesn't pay that much these days, so I multitask. I have my own PI company that I run out of my home, and I do my journalistic work. And why Kevin and I kept working together is because he promised me a way that I could blend both. And this is why people question my integrity, question why I would continue digging in on Karen Cates when it was clearly just a vindictive lover trying to get dirt for a divorce, and that would be technically beneath me as a reporter. However, tabloids do the same thing and make billions of dollars a year. But I digress. You can't be a serious journalist and conduct yourself in these types of stories. So, for you to understand my perspective, Kevin Cates promised that if I found something about Karen, something deep rooted enough to dethrone her, the beloved native, as the mayor of New York City, that he would personally fund my own magazine. not only in print but an online source, and he would do that for 10 years, which means I would have financial backing to go after any story I wanted. I wouldn't be working for anyone who told me what stories I couldn't print, what I could say. I could be the true whistleblower I wanted to be. It was everything I was aspiring to have in my political career. But it's not like he was just going to give it to me. Karen Cates is a very manipulative person, and she has a very dark history, as you've learned through the trial. But she didn't make it where she is by being stupid, and she knows how to bury her dirt very well. She was probably the hardest case, the hardest investigation, hands down, that I have ever conducted or been a part of. And I have been both a reporter and a private detective majority of my career. Impressive in all actuality, her level of criminal. Not that you should be proud of it, but she wouldn't be on any episode with the world's dumbest criminals in it. She knew what she was doing. She got away with it for years, and this is why the whole trial was shocking. She was very good at painting herself one way. Even me, sitting down as an investigator, wasn't believing what people were saying about her behind closed doors, how she really treated people, how she treated her staff, how she was a bully in school, how she was a bully in college, all these underlining secrets. I didn't believe it because I, like you, saw Karen Cates as the beloved mayor who could do no wrong, who kicks ass for our city every day, fighting not only for women but for immigrant rights and equality. And she's done a lot as far as a political leader, and that's what's sad about all of this. At the end of the day, she was the first woman mayor to accomplish that much in our city, and all she's ever going to be remembered for is scandal. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So here I was, rather shocked. It didn't take long for the truth about Karen Cates to come out, but this is the part of Karen Cates that people don't understand. She has a whole staff whose mission is to make sure reporters like me, who do find out the truth, are paid enough to not print anything about it or to act like they didn't find anything. They pay people to spin fluff pieces. They pay people not to tell the truth about Karen or Kevin and any of his many discretions with women over the years. I think it was a big shock for the world to find out the truth about Kevin Cates as well. I wasn't very shocked about it, hanging out with him in these dive bars discussing his wife, the way he discussed women. He just naturally is very degrading and doesn't have much respect for women in general. He comes from a very old school generation. Not that there's any excuse for that, but I think the world was shocked because Karen does such a good job of covering for her husband. Candy Cooper was one of a large slew of 20-somethings that Kevin kept himself busy with over the years. Karen and Kevin had an agreement. When they got married, this is what became very clear to me in the beginning of the investigation. Although there was a lot of sexual passion, this was never a marriage that was based on love. This was never a marriage that they even saw lasting as long as it did. I think, honestly, as a reporter, and from hearing both sides at the end of the day, I feel they thought maybe it would last 2 years and they could get a divorce and go their own ways. They had respect for each other in the sense of, I'm going to use you and you're going to use me, but together we're going to boost ourselves up. We're going to make money off of this. We're going to build our career off of this. I'm going to take you up with me and you're going to take me up with you. And there was an agreement that if one soiled their name, it soiled both of their names. It was a business partnership. But yes, sex was involved. They were young, they had beautiful bodies, but it was very clear they didn't want any children. Karen Cates got her tubes tied before her wedding day, so if that wasn't clear on how much she did not want to be a mother. And then Kevin Cates also got snipped later down the road when he started having affairs, so that he couldn't produce children because that would be an embarrassment to her. So neither one of them were able to have kids, even if they did change their mind, is my point. So they entered this relationship. He was already quite successful, millionaire, doing well. Like he's the man on Wall Street. He's the investor. He has the best firm in the city. If you want to make money, you go to Kevin Cates. Everybody knows that. His face is everywhere. He has a waiting list, so he was quite successful when he met Karen. Karen was also working up the political ladder. She was on her way to be mayor. She didn't really need Kevin to be mayor, but it helped to have his money and his backing and be the ear of that 1%. And so, in my opinion, them coming together got Karen elected. So they became the it couple of New York City, which Karen had planned for during the campaign to get votes and make it a love story. And Kevin Cates, the king of Manhattan, the money of the city, and then Karen Cates, the native who came back to change the city for rags to riches story. She came up poor and Hell's Kitchen, and people just love her, and they were the power couple of the century. People couldn't get enough. It made New York City popular again. Every event they went to, they were holding hands and they would sneak in. Like, you really bought it. You bought that their relationship was real. You bought that they loved each other. They sold it. They were acting every time they were out. Every event they left in separate cars. Everyone's like, how is that? We see them leaving together. Yes, but if you go up 3 blocks, you would see that they would pull up to another car, and quickly either Karen or Kevin would get out and get into another black sedan, and one would go to one apartment and one would go to the other. They do have residents that they live together because they have to keep up the guys, even to the staff. So that didn't last for long. Their close staff eventually caught on to what the relationship was, because you can't keep that up when you're living apart and you're traveling and you're doing stuff apart. But they were able to hide it because of their busyness and their nature of their careers. And people don't really question you when you're the mayor or you have money and they're your staff. And of course, even if they did figure it out, they kept it quiet because they're your staff, so they keep your secrets if they want to keep their job. But it was made clear to me in my investigation that the weeks would go by without the two of them even speaking at all. They would plan through their secretaries what they were wearing, what events they would attend together, what their reason was to be going together, what they wanted to obtain from it. And most of it was about keeping that love story for votes, or putting them in the newspaper to keep them relevant. And Kevin got more work too, being the husband of the mayor. That just helped people trust them more with their money for some reason, so he picked up more clients. He actually grew in his firm. It was just one hand washed the other, and it worked well for them. They had a great friendship. They were known to be laughing, and there was no hate in the relationship at all. They were very clear on what they wanted from each other, and if they felt like when they were together having sex, they did. That's what it was explained to me. It was a friends with benefits deal. And in the midst of all of that, they became codependent on each other, and their careers meshed, and the city in some way made it very clear that they couldn't tolerate it if these two ever broke up. They became like the mom and dad of New York City, and again, they see the power influence of that, so they stayed in this longer. And when you get that famous, what I feel happened to these two is their circle got smaller and smaller and smaller, and they just got tired of living this secret, this lie. So they stopped hiding it, and that's when You know, it was very clear to the staff that there were separate residences. They were going to be living separate lives. And their staff and their people kept it going because of the fact of her political staff knew it would be political suicide if she ever wanted to be reelected to take away the love story of them. And, you know, he didn't want to lose clients for people picking sides, Kevin, as in he knew that the political clients loyal to his wife, if they were to divorce, would pull out of the firm and he would lose money. So it's like, well, now we're really stuck in this, and that's when the resentment came. I'm not sure if feelings got involved because they were pushed together more, but this is when the hostility and when the shit started hitting the fan, if you will. This is when, about the time Karen started looking for alternative ways to function and cope with the life that she didn't expect her life to turn this way. I think that she had a very different plan for herself, and it did not include toting Kevin Cates around. She stayed longer in that marriage than she wanted to, and it was prevalent, and she had a lot of resentment because she felt she put more energy, more money, more time into things, and he, you know, it took a lot of work to cover up his drug use and his flings, and, you know, he was a bigot, he was a racist, he had no respect for women, so she was always having to, you know, cover up bad stories that would ultimately make her look bad, and so she started to resent him. And as I said earlier, you know, it was never about love. I don't think he really can respect a woman enough to love them fully. In Kevin Cates' mind were just holes to poke, and I know that's so degrading and low, but that's who he is, that's his truth. I'm not sure, he never really would open up about his past, but he has a deep-rooted hatred for women. Doesn't think that they're capable of much or on their own. So I feel like in that marriage he very much threw it in her face. You would be nothing without me. And I'm sure their fights were vicious. From reports, you know, things would be thrown. They would scream at each other for hours. Kevin was a bit of a drinker. Karen liked her pills, and that wasn't always a good mix. Sometimes they got violent, and they would have to cover up bruises. You know, there's a lot underneath it all that the public didn't know that came out in the trial that was rather shocking, but it was all a build-up of years, like a layered cake. They started this as friends. They started this with a short-term plan, and it grew into something that neither of them could control, and that became the center of them trying to control, and it was like a power struggle. And then the next layer is the resentment. Well, now I don't want to be in this with you, but now I'm stuck in it with you. I should have never done it. And that's when, around the time Kevin met Candy Cooper, who was and is still a very popular, sadly, supermodel. And we all know the stories, how she overdosed, and, you know, I think it has a lot to do with what came out in the trial. She was very strong and very adamant on clearing her name, but I think it was just to the point where her career was just too badly damaged by Kevin and what he was. Nobody can understand why a person would choose to take their life, but I think it had a lot to do with, and I know a lot of people pinned it on Karen and how many times in the courtroom she would call her a whore and just outright degrade her, and, you know, they would strike it from the record, but everybody heard it, including Candy, and everyone's like, Karen bullied her, and, you know, I think that had a lot to do with it, but I think it was more of what Kevin was saying, because she had the relationship with Kevin and she bonded with Kevin, so they took what Kevin said as fact. But in my investigation, at no point in time have I ever discovered that Candy had anything to do with porn, that she was ever in a porn video, that she had ever worked for a porn company. So for a supermodel who just started a really good acting career, she had been in some good movies, she had just signed to do a TV show, and he released the sex tape that he had made illegally of them in the hotel, which was, brought up in court, and Kevin got sued for that because she was unlawfully filmed. She didn't know that she was being filmed, and it destroyed and degraded her worth as a supermodel and an actress, and that was a whole separate trial, and we went through it. But that's where Candy started her drug use. She was mortified. She was embarrassed. Like, she was from down south, and you grow up a different way down south, so to have your body out like that, and for everybody to think you're a porn star, and I honestly, as a reporter, and everything I found out about her, she was a little bit promiscuous, but I don't think she had any more partners than an average person her age, and I never found any, Playboy, no, she didn't pose for anything, she was never in any movies. I think it was 100% bullshit by Kevin to paint her as the person who sucked him into the affair, when it was the opposite, because just like me, Kevin promising me my own company, my own magazine, he was promising Candy jobs and promotions, and he was getting her work. She got work on every major fashion runway show. She was getting big time ads in the Super Bowl. She was getting parts in movies, all because of Kevin's connection. So it is true that Candy did benefit, and she openly admitted that was their relationship. She would have sex with him, and he would give her gifts and jobs. But it wasn't like she was a prostitute. It was a genuine friendship, a friends with benefits. And she would say sugar daddy. Yes, he was my sugar daddy, but I was not a prostitute. I didn't go there just to have sex. We hung out without having sex plenty of times. So she did make it clear that sex was involved, but she was not at any time a client of Kevin Cates as he had painted in the trial. And then, it didn't help that Karen and her whole crew painting Candy to be psycho, breaking into the house, stealing pictures of her, none of this ever happened. You have to understand Karen Cates, and you have to understand Candy Cooper. Candy Cooper loathed Karen Cates' existence. They were complete opposites. Two people couldn't be more different. In no way did Candy Cooper ever act like Karen Cates. In no way did Candy Cooper ever have the audacity to come to Kevin Cates' house and snoop through his wife's stuff. There is no video footage, and that house is covered better than Fort Knox. Her car has never been driven in the driveway. She's never even been logged on the street cams. So they painted this poor girl, both of them, to serve themselves, and it ruined her. It destroyed everything, and she lost herself to drugs, and she took her life 2 weeks before her bit of the trial began. And it rocked the nation, because now you understand and you see the truth and how manipulative these two really are. And me, I shouldn't have been bribed as a reporter. I shouldn't have let somebody dangle something in my face. That's why I've stepped down as a reporter. But I still need to tell my side of it. But this is what I want you to understand. They are so good at sucking you in. They're so good at making you believe that everybody does this. Everybody takes a piece of the pie for themselves. They are schmoozers. They are sirens. Like, the whole theory of, I don't believe in vampires, but of you will, or Yoda, if you will let us pass. It's like they just say it and you believe it. It's like complete mind control, and you want to be their friend. You want to be invited to their things. They are in themselves a Ponzi scheme. And Candy fell for it, and so did I. And unfortunately, it went a bad way for Candy, and I hope she rests in peace, and I hope that her family gets justice, because they are fighting for defamation and wrongful death. They are questioning whether Candy even committed her own suicide. It was questionable on where the injection site was between her toes, why she would do that. She wasn't hiding her addiction. She didn't have any other marks to show that she had used there before, and she had marks on other places. It's questionable, so I'll be tuning in. And I really thought Candy was a sweet girl. I think that she just didn't have anyone looking out for her. She grew up as a lot of people, I think, down south. She talked a little bit about it. I didn't get to talk much about her, unfortunately, in the investigation. I didn't pour into her life as much as I would have liked to, but her mother was a drunk, and I think what hurt her most is her mother was a genuine prostitute, and Candy did everything in her life to not turn out like her mother, and she never did, but she was painted like her mother, and that's just a mental mind warp I don't think that she could come back from. So in my opinion, I really do think that is a wrongful death, because she didn't. If she did, I would have found it. I'm very good at what I do. I went back her whole life. I didn't find any evidence of her ever being a prostitute in any way. I did of her mother, but her and her mother looked very different. So there would be no mistaking her. They knew what they were doing to Candy, and they knew what they were doing to me. They just didn't expect me to jump on the coattails of everybody else. Now that the trial's over, everyone's coming out about their truth, because we were all afraid to get drug in the trial, myself included. I was afraid to talk about it. I don't want to be connected to these two, but at the same time, they have connected themselves to me by bringing my name into the trial. So I'm telling you the truth. I was suckered. I took a deal I shouldn't have as a journalist, and I lost my integrity for it. And Candy lost her life for it. And not only Candy, but then you have Winston. And that whole roller coaster ride, and it really wakes us up to mental illness in this country. And then you have Rihanna. Do you believe in that stuff? I don't know. But if you haven't been watching the trial, let me fill you in just a little bit. So Karen Cates met Rihanna Rhodes within her first couple months of campaigning to become mayor. So she actually met Rihanna before she was mayor, and she was just walking into local businesses and trying to get votes and shaking hands, and everyone saw this voodoo shop, and they were like, "Oh, keep going. We can't have you be photographed going in a voodoo shop. You know, you'll lose the religious votes." And she said it was an opportunity to open a door and get a whole new group of voters. So she went in there, being a skeptic, a Christian woman. Ended up liking Rihanna, liked her accent, felt pulled to her. Rihanna told her something that she was suffering from that she hadn't told anyone, and gave her some kind of ointment, and sure enough it worked. So like a week or two later, Karen had come back to the shop, and she just kept going back to the shop. She became more interested in holistic medicine than Western medicine, although she did still go to a regular doctor as well. But this is where the trial got a little fun, when Rihanna got on the stand and testified to the fact that Karen Cates, the mayor of New York City, would pay her to do spells on people to get votes, to win the election, to, spell people who talked bad about her so that they would have bad luck or horrible things would happen to them. She went all the way back with all these crazy accidents that happened, and she believed that she is a real voodoo priestess, and that her spells had worked, and that people had died and had accidents because the two of them had conspired and casted. And Karen Cates turned on her friend, being the mayor of New York, and trying to save face through this trial, denied any link at all to voodoo work or doing spells. But in my research, there were many charges to her shop on Karen's credit card, and they were known to be frequent lunch buddies, which means she would travel to see her for lunch at least 3 times a week. And on several occasions, she's been photographed leaving the shop carrying parcels, carrying items that she bought on her credit card. And, Karen turned around saying, I would buy candles, I would buy ointments, I would buy things for my house, but I wasn't doing spells. And then when they did the house search, they ended up finding her, I don't know what you would call it, a book of spells. It was handwritten, matched to her hand, and the ironic part is Rihanna also had the same book, the same binding. There's different spells in them, but it's like they had bought them at the same time, and it wasn't something that Rihanna had sold in her store. So there are links dating many, many years of her spending money in that shop. She had a book of spells, so I'm not saying that they caused anyone to die or have accidents, but the fact that they wrote things in the book, and then a couple days later, those people in the book either perished, sadly, had dip in votes, or something happened to them, because they would write it and gloat. And when I went to check, sure enough, it was true. So, despite what you believe, that gave me a little bit of a chill. Is this real? Is this murder? Is this something somebody could be charged with? If it was real, it just made the trial go a little bit crazy. I know the tabloids and the newspapers ran amok with it. I know a lot of people were like, what the hell is going on? The mayor of the city doing spells. She's got a spell book. The religious community was in an uproar that the devil had taken over politics, and it created this whole thing. But in it, Rihanna's shop blew up. Rihanna got her own YouTube channel teaching spells, which I'm not sure is a good thing if she is out here killing people. And her fame only went up. She never had anything happen to her other than testifying in court just to clear her name. Before the trial, she had went to a tabloid and admitted that her and Karen had been friends for many years, that they were best friends, and it got attached to the voodoo shop, and it created a stink, and Karen tried to pull back, and that's when the friendship ripped. And I think they just used the trial to get some stabs in. And at the end of the day, I think Rihanna came out on top because she's making mad money. She's free. And if she did kill all those people with Karen's not free. She's sitting in jail. And her whole career, her whole image, everything they built together is destroyed. So perhaps, maybe don't turn on your voodoo priestess at the end of the day would be her lesson, right? Getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about Winston. Winston is a sad story. Unfortunately, we don't hear about this kind of mental illness until they have the breaks and they do the horrific things that we do try to stop from happening. But Winston and Candy have a very unique story. And when he lost Candy, he lost his sanity, if there was any sanity in there at all. Winston, as we know, ended up to be a serial killer, and a lot of people said that he did what he did to take out more people and then take out himself because he knew that he wasn't going to get out of the trial. And I think that's very true. I think he was very, very angry, and I think he wanted to go out with a bang, and he knew that he wasn't going to get out of his trial. He wasn't someone that was going to survive well in prison. So yes, I support the fact that I think we all felt he was going to do something, and that's why he was placed on watch, but nobody expected that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Candy met Winston when it was before she met Kevin and started having a relationship, and her career was taking off to enough in itself that, she had a name for herself and she had some money. When she met Winston, she met him in Central Park. He was homeless and scruffy, and she had been walking by him for a week. She had been shooting a catalog, I think it was, and she had been walking by him all week, giving him money, giving him food, talking to him a little bit every day. I think she sensed that he didn't have anyone, that he was a little bit slow, that he wasn't a druggie. He just, was lost. And from what I learned about them and what we have recorded before she died, Candy loved Winston like a family. Like, her family was absolute shit. She never had anyone love her, and I think she recognized that in Winston. He didn't have anyone, she didn't have anyone, and so she decided that she was going to scoop him up off of the side of the road. And just like that, she's like, on her last day of shooting, she just said, "Winston, get up, get your stuff, you're coming with me." She took him to the hotel. She called someone up and had him shower and get a haircut and a shave. She got him food. She took him to the doctor, and he had been with her ever since. Every place she lived, he lived with her, and it was never anything sexual. It was always like brother and sister on her end. And she wrote a lot about him in her journal. How at first he wouldn't say anything, and how their relationship developed, and she learned that he was abused, that he had served our country, and what Candy at no point knew what Winston was doing. I don't think anyone knew. When the truth came out, we were all shocked. Winston was very much a wallflower. He very rarely looked at anyone or spoke to anyone. The only one he would look directly in the eye was Candy. She was an angel to him. She saved him. He loved her more than a sister. He was in love with her, and it was very evident and very clear from the findings, the years worth of photos, the journal entries, the wanting to marry her. But he never crossed the line with Candy. He never hurt her in any way. And anybody he did end up killing was always a foe of Candy, or somebody he felt was going to take Candy from him, which ultimately is what happened to... He got caught as a serial killer because he didn't finish Kevin off. That's, in my opinion. I'm getting ahead of myself, but when Candy killed herself, Winston knew all about their affair. He knew all about the arrangement. She told Winston that she wasn't in love with him, that she was using him, and he was using her, and it was fine. And Winston was hurt by it, but at the end of the day, he always supported what Candy did, and he kept her safe, and he kept the secret safe. And when he found out what Karen was doing, and Rihanna, even me, with the reporter, he tried to tell her. She didn't listen. They had their first big blowout. So he had a lot of resentment for Kevin before all of this happened. But then the trial happened, and he started saying she was a whore, and he just couldn't take it, and then she took her life, and it was the one time he couldn't protect Candy. He couldn't protect Candy from her own self, and it broke him, and he stopped hiding the fact that he was good at covering up accidents, that he was good at faking murders, and he had done it 3 or 4 times prior in the past. Like I said, either people that he thought Candy would love more than him, and eventually push him out of her life. He was not okay. He had PTSD. never been treated on it. The brain scan they did on his body was just evident that he had a lot of concussions. There was evidence of schizophrenia in there. He was not a healthy person, and although Candy saved him, and I think she loved him very much, I think she spent their entire relationship manipulating him. She didn't want to lose him either. He did everything she asked. He was her minion. You know what I mean? Like, if you really loved someone, there's no way you could not know that he was in love with her. Like, she knew that he loved her, and that she just like would parade men around him. I didn't like that side of her. That was the only part I didn't like. But so let's lead into the night she died. It was actually Winston who identified the body, and he left from identifying the body to go straight to where Kevin Cates was holding up and preparing for trial, and took out, unfortunately killed all of his guards and damn near killed Kevin, but Kevin was able to escape. If Kevin had never escaped, nobody would have seen Winston's face. I think he would have exposed of all the bodies, and I think he would have covered it up, and we would have still be sitting here like, who killed Kevin Cates? Like, what the hell happened there? But Kevin got away, and there was no covering it. He had made it to the police station. There was no evidence that Winston tried to run. I think he knew that he had limited time before he was found, and he surrounded himself in pictures of Candy, and he played on repeat a clip of her laughing and them talking and dancing together, and the rest. That's where they found him. Unfortunately, after seeing what he was capable of and connecting the dots around Candy and how people, like, she was the last person to see, they actually suspected Candy of being a serial killer before Winston, even though both were dead, both took their own life. And then they switched that maybe they were a dynamic duo, but then Candy was cleared. There's no way she was even anywhere near the murders or would have known anything about it. So it was all Winston, and they traced it, as detectives do. Your cell phone bings. They can tell on highway cams, like if you pull on someone straight. So they were able to place Winston at almost every death. So it was clear that Candy didn't know anything about it. Could she have sent him? Could she have manipulated him in that way? Absolutely. We'll never know. The only good thing is that they're still together up there, and hopefully they're at peace. I like to think of them, they were two broken kids that never were given a fair shake, and I think they became the people they were because of it. I'm not saying it's an excuse, but think about a child who grows up without knowing love or having any nourishment or learning right from wrong. For that, I think that they came out surprisingly well, even though at least Winston, I don't think he ever set out to be a murderer. I think he just loved so hard. He had waited his whole life to have love, a family, and everything he had went through he would die for it, and ultimately he did. Which brings us to Karen and Kevin Cates. You have Rihanna still doing well in the city. You have me. I'm not a reporter anymore, but I am still an excellent PI, and yes, work has picked up for me. My name got out there from this trial, both in good and bad ways, and I feel like Rihanna the same way. But Kevin and Karen, their trial went 0 dark 30 very fast. of course, you found out all the details we already went through, how it was an agreement. We didn't really live together. There's a long list of mistresses on both sides, gambling, drug issues, just anything they could to paint the other one nasty. It was, pick a side, America. What side were you on? Are you Team Karen or are you Team Kevin? They even made t-shirts. It was rather disgusting. And then the tax evasion and the money stuff got into it, and Kevin got crumbled. So you have Karen Cates, who ultimately, out of all of this, is going to prison for corruption and abuse of power in her political arena. And Kevin Cates, well, with a lot of scars from an attempted murder, and his life has changed permanently for it. Although Winston didn't take his life, he did maul him. He did take a limb. You know, his life is changed. He did have to come back from that. But he's also going to spend a very, very long time in prison because although he had all the money in the world, he thought he was too good to pay his taxes. That'll get you every time. I mean, I understand if you don't pay because you don't have the money. There's a lot of people in my area that have that problem, but the government works with you if you can't pay it. You could pay it, and you just didn't, so you deserve to be where you are. But there's a lot of people out here that pay more in taxes than that man because he's a one-percenter. You know? They get all the perks. But at the end of the day, their evilness took them out. Karen will never be respected or taken seriously ever again. She is exposed as a racist, bully, bigot who lied her way and bought her way into office and should have never came home at all, because turns out she's the biggest con artist in New York City. That's a hard title to earn. New York City is full of con artists. And Kevin, you know, he'll never have a spot on Wall Street. No one will ever invest money with him. You know, not only the tax stuff, but he, as I said, was a Ponzi scheme on himself. You know, he crushed businesses just because he wanted to. Backstab friends just because he wanted to. And all of that was exposed, and he lost everyone who gave a good goddamn about him, and so did Karen. They don't even have each other in the end. They're in prison, broke, alone, and they never thought they were going to be there because they never thought that the world or anyone would make them own their shit. And I just wanted to clear the record, and I hope that I did. I know it's going to take some work to get your trust back as a journalist after selling my soul for my dream. That's not how you get your dream. You get your dream by hard work, and I know that now. So if anything was a takeaway, I'm really thinking hard about what cases I take on and how I go about it. But I hope one day to be back in front of your TV screen with your respect. Until then, this is my piece, and thank you for hearing me out. Love and light. Peace.